How's it going? I'm Donovan, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about the phrase happiness is a choice and 3 reasons why it's not really. So, you've probably heard the phrase happiness is a choice, and I think it comes from a good place, but there's some nuances and some pieces that make it really not that useful and not really something that's true or should be shared around. So in this video, I'm going to go through 3 reasons why happiness isn't really a choice. The first reason is basically that it's not a choice, but it's a series of choices, right? There's not one moment in time where you go, okay, I'm going to be happy, right? Otherwise, everyone would just choose to be happy all the time. And I think that's part of the problem in using this phrase is it makes people feel like when they're unhappy, they've made the choice to be unhappy. When in reality, there's all these different choices that we make that influence our happiness. And there's not one single decision that we go, okay, you know what? I'm going to be happy. And from now on, I'm doing it. That's just not how it works. Now, there are plenty of choices that impact our happiness. One of the easiest ones is diet, right? If we're going to eat a certain type of food, we're going to feel a certain type of way, and then that dictates or changes the likelihood that we're going to feel happy or unhappy. So the first problem I have with this phrase is that it's just pointing out a single period of time when in reality, it's not just I choose to be happy. It's I make a series of choices and they all kind of play together to determine my happiness levels. Now, I think the intent here is to say that we have some control over our happiness or control over our happiness. And that's sort of true, right? There are things we can do, things we can change, choices we can make that are likely to lead to happiness. However, none of these are guaranteed, and the phrase kind of just oversimplifies how things work. So in reality, it's a little bit closer to happiness is a series of choices that we can make to optimize, instead of just we choose and then suddenly we're happy and indefinitely happy. The second reason that happiness isn't really a choice is because our mind runs on autopilot a lot of the time, right? So what I mean by that is we can be doing some sort of activity and then suddenly realize we're either happy or unhappy and then act on that. It's the same as saying, something about like anger or sadness, right? You can be doing some other activity and then feel the emotion and then notice. But there was never a choice before that made it clear that, okay, here's the pivotal point. I'm going to choose happiness right now. In the same way that you don't usually have scenarios where you say, okay, here's the pivotal point. I'm going to choose sadness. I'm going to choose anger. What happens is events unfold, we start feeling a certain way, and then yes, once you recognize that you're in or feeling a certain emotion, then you can make decisions to kind of influence that, right? If you're angry, you can choose to feed into that or not. And the same thing with happiness or unhappiness. If you catch yourself happy, you can look for other opportunities to make choices that bring you to that same place. Or if you're unhappy, you can look for choices or ways to take you from unhappy to happy once you recognize it. But you can get to this place without ever making... So the phrase happiness is a choice kind of muddles the fact that we can arrive at this state without having made a conscious decision beforehand. Now, of course, all of our decisions play a part. All of our decisions have influence. But to say that happiness is a choice in that way doesn't quite seem accurate. Now, the third reason that the phrase happiness is a choice is a little bit problematic is because there is a genetic component to happiness. Now, we don't talk about it a lot here. I don't mention it very often because it's not actionable, right? There's nothing you can do. However, there's plenty you can do given your baseline, right? You can't change your baseline, but there's a lot of stuff you can do to become happier based on where you start. And saying that happiness is a choice kind of implies a little bit that it's completely on you and completely in your control whether or not you feel happy, and that just ignores the fact that there is some genetic component. Again, I really want to emphasize that you shouldn't give up if you find yourself feeling unhappy often, because within whatever baseline you're given, you can always optimize. And that's what this channel focuses on. That's what's important here, is optimizing for happiness. But there is genetic components. There are forces outside your control that have influences on your happiness. So to say it's just a choice doesn't really fold in the full complexity and nuance of the situation. Overall, I just think the phrase is a little bit problematic and it can lead people to feeling down because, when they feel unhappy, then they feel like it's their fault. And it's not always your fault when you're feeling unhappy. In fact, you're going to feel unhappy sometimes regardless of who you are. So the phrase makes it seem like you can always just choose to be happy. You can always just make this choice and suddenly things will be better. when in reality it's a little bit more complex. There's a little more nuance. Yes, there are choices we can make to optimize for happiness, but we're still going to feel unhappiness. And it's not just a single choice, it's the way we construct our entire lives. So I always like to end on something actionable, and we're going to move into a little bit different terrain than happiness is a choice and look at what it is that you can actually influence and change that will increase your happiness. So, number one is create a list of choices that do impact happiness. And then number two, pick one of those choices and figure out how you can make a choice during one of those decisions. So look at those decisions, look at the context, look at the surrounding pieces of information and options and choices and environment and everything that you do have control over, and think about ways that you can make that choice, that pivotal choice that does impact your happiness, a little bit easier for you to make this choice that makes you happier. That's all I've got for this video. So as always, if you have any questions, comments, topics you want me to cover, put them down in the box below. I'll get to them as soon as I can, and I will see you next time.
You can check out more content at howtohappy.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe so you can stay up to date on the videos. We've also got a Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook that you can check out. Reflect, take action, and enjoy life. See you next time.